Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com.
We are doing a matchmaking series for February, and we're talking with clients and employees that have gone through the process of having a dog selected and just going through that experience. And Michelle, talk a little bit about how you picked Rambo and then how you picked Prudence, and then the process that you went through picking Murphy, the breed, and kind of everything that you went through that. So start with Rambo. He was the first one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Actually, he was not my first dog. I've had dogs growing up, but my actual first dog was still actually is alive, and she lives with my parents. And that dog was, I've always wanted a Papillon. My whole life I've wanted a Papillon as long as I can remember. My mom used to make fun of me all the time that I had a book that she always called my Bible. It was the dog breed, like the AKC dog breed book. And I still have it, and there are like pages that are ripped, and it's really sad.
Awesome.
But, but I always wanted a Papillon. So for my 17th birthday, my mom said that she'd get me a dog. And we found a breeder to get a Papillon, and it was back east. And then my mom just like last minute got like we were going to drive there, and like last minute my mom was like, this lady just doesn't seem right. And knowing what I know now, my mom actually had really good instincts, and I'm glad we didn't do that. But this was like a week before my birthday, and I was devastated. Oh. And so my mom took me to an adopt-a-thon, and we ended up coming home with Izzy, which is hilarious because I wanted a boy dog and I wanted a Papillon. And Izzy is a girl, like Australian Shepherd Chow mix. Yeah. Totally the opposite of what I wanted, right?
Right.
But she ended up being a really, really, really fantastic dog for me at that time. So for a couple years later, I moved in with my future husband, and Izzy couldn't come with us because she does not like, well, it's not that she doesn't like men. She's very, very protective of me and my mom, and any man that comes near us, she will bite them. And so that just was not going to work for Brandon. He was just like, he couldn't have a relationship with her the way he wanted to have a relationship with a dog. Yep. And it wasn't fair to him because he'd never had a dog.
Right.
So, and she's happy living in the country with my parents anyways, and we were moving to the city. So she stayed with my parents. So at that time, we lived in an apartment that we couldn't have a dog, and I was devastated. I literally cried. I'm not kidding, you guys. I cried every night for 3 months. Like, it was really bad.
Yeah.
And so Brandon was like, okay, next house, we'll get you a dog. But actually, we ended up getting Rambo a month before we moved out. We were hiding him.
Perfect, yeah.
So at that point, I seriously was like, I want a Papillon. Like, that's what I've always wanted. I'm going to get what I want this time. And I thought it would be a really great first dog for him because it was a little dog, and Brandon had never had a dog. So I was supposed to get him for Christmas that year. And we started just looking for a breeder roughly in August, and like a month into like looking, I actually found a breeder that happened to have a boy that was the right color that I wanted. And so that's why we ended up getting him before we were moving out.
Okay.
Because we were supposed to get him for Christmas, which we were moving out 2 weeks after that.
Right.
So Rambo was hidden in our closet for a good month, which is so surprising that I think about it now, how potty trained he is.
Right. Yeah.
Because he almost had to be, because he was like in a confined space.
Yeah.
And it was like, we had set times that we would sneak out to take him out. Anyways, totally besides the point, but.
Perfect.
Then we moved back in with my parents for 6 months after we lived in that apartment. And we were gone for really long times of the day because we were still driving to Salt Lake. So I thought Rambo needed a friend. And so that's where, at the time I worked at a boarding facility, and I fell in love with this Cavalier that came in. And so we decided that we'd look into getting a Cavalier. And I just happened to find a breeder that was really close to my parents' house. And Brandon was not happy about it. He did not want another dog, especially in the like circumstances we were in at that point. Right. My dad wasn't happy about it. But I told Brandon, I was like, let's just go look and see if it's a dog you would like.
Yeah.
So we showed up, and we showed up with Rambo, and Rambo loved her so much, and Brandon couldn't leave her. Like, I actually at that point was like, meh, like, I don't know if this is the right dog. You're probably right. Maybe we should wait.
Right.
And he was like, we're not leaving here without her.
Yeah.
So that's how Prudence came about.
Okay.
And then, we moved into an apartment, and we just had 2 small dogs. So it was great having 2 small dogs. And then we moved into a house that we were renting, And it's kind of a funny story. We lived in a really, really sketchy neighborhood. And our neighbors, their cats, like somebody came and killed their cats. And I was so upset about it. And I was like, we can't let our dogs out in the yard ever again without like having some kind of protection. So me again thinking, I'm going to get we're just going to get another dog to fix this problem.
Right.
So we decided to get a big dog. But at this point we'd been working with Joe, with you for, it'd been 5 years probably at that point.
Yeah.
With Rambo, cause he'd had some social issues and stuff. So this time I decided I was going to do it the right way and not just pick the cutest dog, because that's really what happened with the other two. Rambo, it was just the right color, and he was a boy. Prudence, it really honestly was just because Rambo liked her is why Brandon picked her.
Yeah.
And so we contacted Joe and asked her what, I don't know if you want me to call you Joe on this podcast or not, but anyways.
Good one.
Okay. So we contacted you, and I think I just laid out what I wanted. I was like, we want a big dog that is protective, but that can still be social. Brandon is definitely still terrified of dogs. He was terrified of dogs at that point. Not in the he was scared of dogs, personally. Me working at a daycare, he was terrified of dogs being together. Like that terrified him.
Yeah.
Because I'd come home and be like, oh, there was a dog fight at work. Right. And he was so scared of that. So the thought of a big dog for him was really intimidating to be around our little dogs.
Yeah.
So that was something that we had to figure out, was a big dog that could be good with both of our little dogs, that would protect their yard, but that was social, could keep up with me being the high demands of it having to be somewhat smart, and challenging me, but not challenging him as much.
Right.
And you gave us 3 breeds to choose, to kind of look into. And it was a standard poodle, a giant schnauzer, and a Briard. At the time, I really wanted a Greater Swiss Mountain Dog, and you told me not a chance.
Yep.
Which is funny now, because I think that dog would be perfect for Brandon and terrible for me.
Yep.
And so we went and we met. I straight off said I didn't want a giant schnauzer, because the only ones I'd ever met I did not care for. But we went and met with one of your clients that had a Briard and one that had a giant schnauzer.
Yep.
And nothing against giant schnauzers. In fact, we'll get into this more, but the more and more I learned about them, I actually really love them now. But after meeting the Briard, I just knew that was the breed that was for me. And man, it was a process after that.
Yep.
It was a really fast process for how much was put into it, was the crazy thing. At that point, I started, I seriously think I sent at least a very, very minimal 10 different standard poodle breeders, 10 different, emailing them, giant schnauzer and 10 different Briards. And really at that point, what it came down to was I did not care for standard poodle breeders. They did not want to answer my questions. And I'm not I don't want to bash on anybody personally, because I really couldn't remember any, but
right.
They didn't want to help me. Even if I don't think at the time any of them had puppies, but none of them wanted to answer my questions. And they were simple questions like, hey, I've got small dogs. Do you think those dogs would be good with my small dogs?
Yeah.
Where the giant schnauzer people and the Briard breeders were amazing. They were so great. I actually had a couple of giant schnauzer breeders that straight up said they wouldn't sell a puppy to me because I had small dogs. And I thought that was, I seriously, I wish I could go back and be like, you guys are amazing breeders, because I think that's really cool that they were honest with me about it.
Right.
And I mean, there was a lot, and I'm not saying that I couldn't get a giant schnauzer that could be with my small dogs. They said that. They were like, we can find the right puppy for you if you really want to, but we're just telling you that
what their lines and what they had was not a right fit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good.
And the Briard people were that way too. They were really, really amazing, and they wanted to talk to me, and they all wanted to answer my questions. And I even had a few of them that were like, hey, call us on the phone and talk to us. We don't have puppies right now. We just want to make sure you're getting the right breed for you.
Right.
And at the time, I remember rolling my eyes all the time, because I was like, oh my gosh, you people are crazy.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's how we started that process. I found, I think, 3 different breeders that were Briard breeders, because that's when I decided that's really what I wanted. And I had you contact them as well, through email. And then we decided there was actually a litter that would have been ready within a few weeks. So we decided to go with that breeder. And, I mean, man, after that, it was all you. I mean, I talked to the breeder and stuff, but you actually were the one that you dealt with all of her sending videos to you and actually picking out the boy or a girl. Like, I mean, I wanted a boy, but like it was really up in the air on our side.
Yep.
It was all you picking that out for us and taking that emotional side out for us.
And what, when we pinpointed everything down, how was Brandon coping with all of it? I find this fascinating because he's the one that actually flew out and picked up Murphy.
When I brought up getting a big dog, and it's kind of funny now that we're talking about this, like he did not want a Greater Swiss Mountain dog, like at all. And I did.
Yeah.
Because he was terrified of the size of them, like terrified of the size of them. And it's so funny now to think of that because it's totally the opposite now.
Yeah.
But, I think I have the best husband in the world, and I think he'll do anything that I want him to, that I want, let me do.
Yep.
And I think he knew it was just we were getting a dog.
Right.
But I really genuinely think if you had not been there to pick out the puppy, it would have been a totally different story. I think at the time he would have been like, "You're too emotionally involved, Michelle. Like, you have got to back off."
Yeah.
But the second we actually picked a breeder, he was fully on board.
Yeah.
Brandon is the one that actually flew out to get Murphy because we had a week to actually, like, after the puppy was picked, to get a plane ticket and get down there.
Yep.
We did talk the breeder into letting us have Murphy, 4 weeks before she actually normally gave puppies away, I believe. I think she gave him at 12 when we got him at 6.5. And the only reason why we actually got him at 6.5 and not 6 was because Brandon couldn't get a plane, and because they were going to do the ear cropping before he came.
Yep.
But he was fully on board. He's like, yep, because I couldn't get work off, so he was like, I will go. So yeah.
Yeah, it was fascinating because he really embraced it all in a very transactional, matter-of-fact way.
Absolutely.
And I think it was probably the best thing for Murphy to experience. Like there wasn't any emotional anything. It was just, we're picking up the dog, we get on the airplane, and hopefully it's quiet and we get back here. And it was very transactional.
Brandon was terrified that puppy was going to scream on the plane. He was like, what do I do if it screams? And I'm like, there's nothing you can do. Like,
Yep.
What do you want me to tell you?
Put the earplugs in.
Yeah. But no, he totally, that was exactly, it was like, I have to fly out at 6 a.m. I'm picking the dog up. This is where our layover is. Like,
Yeah. He was really good. And I think that helped Murphy just I mean, he really just like folded into everything like it was just nothing.
Absolutely. And Murphy, I think for the first month we had him, not only liked Brandon more than me, I think he trusted Brandon more than me. Because when I picked him up, I was like, oh, cuddly puppy. And Brandon was like, nope, this is what we're doing, dude.
Right. Yeah. Very matter of fact.
He didn't lie to him. It was a very honest, like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. it was very, even, starting the whole training process, Brandon was very transactional. And it was very mechanical. Like, what do we need to do? How do we need to do this? And I remember Brandon listening like to everything that was, and that's how it was going to be done. And so we had to even soften Brandon up a little bit because it
drove
was like
me crazy because anytime you were not there helping us, he was like, Joe said you're supposed to do this.
Yep.
I was like, I'm going to cut you.
Yeah. And I think that really helped Murphy keep the balance that he needed, being the breed that he was. Oh, yeah. But also helping Brandon grow into a big dog as well. Yeah, he felt in control and in charge and knew what he needed to do. Because I
genuinely think the best advice you ever gave Brandon was to let Murphy and Prudence let Rambo and Prudence beat Murphy up. Yeah. He loved it. He thought it was the funniest thing ever.
Yeah, these little guys have got to let this puppy know.
Really? He's not going to bite him back?
Yep. Yeah. What do you feel like emotionally the difference in bringing Prudence and Rambo into your home to bringing Murphy into your home? What does it feel like to have the difference where somebody else, like, okay, here's your dog, versus you going out and picking? Because I think color and looks are really important, but at the end of the day, it's the last thing on the list.
I mean, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that should be the first thing on your list, and then a second that like that you get over like what breed, like because obviously you have to like what that dog looks.
Yep.
So I'm not saying like go pick out a puppy because it's the cutest, but like that should be the first thing on your thought is like let's break down all of the breeds into what we think is cute. So,
Right.
And that was another reason why I like standard poodles. Really, they're not my favorite look. So
Sure.
So that was another reason why it was an easy toss out and stuff. Man, I think it's such a different experience. I didn't like Murphy at first, and I think part of that was me being silly and stupid that you picked him out, so I could hate him. Like it was like I didn't pick you, so
Yeah.
In a weird way, where like Rambo, I would have let that dog kill anybody, because I thought he was the cutest thing that I've ever seen in my whole life. Because you know what I mean. I instantly loved that dog. Like I loved Rambo, and you could tell by his personality. Rambo did get away with a lot that first year, and if he was any bigger, probably could have hurt somebody or something very easily.
Yep.
Prudence really seriously did not do it for me at first. I really wanted a Cavalier, but like Brandon really was the ultimate. That was like, no, we're taking her home. Which is probably why she's more Brandon's dog than mine still to this day.
Right.
And Murphy taking that that first love at first sight emotional out of it. We really had to work on it.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot that first year. And I wouldn't give it up for the world now. Ever.
It's crazy, Michelle, because prior to my current pack and then but after my very first dog that I ever got, all the other dogs, the shepherds that I own, really, I mean, I had a handful of rescues that just fit into the household, but really selecting a dog, I always had somebody else do it for me. And so it was very business, a very business relationship, and then it grows into something different. And so Bora, besides my very first dog, he was the first dog that I picked out, but I was picking him out for such a different reason, where Chris had never had a big dog. Just poodles, that's what he had prior to. He had a bulldog growing up. He was just never a big dog. And then also having the 3 kids, so I'm picking out this dog that's everybody else's dog. And so it was easy to be transactional because it wasn't just a dog for me. It was really going to be all of their dogs because of course I knew what I was doing. I can make anything work. And so then Chianti comes along and I didn't pick her out. It was the kids and Chris, and I don't really like her. And she's a lot like me. And then, and then we have, Mitt and Smokey in the middle that we didn't really pick out. They just fit in our pack. And so they just became a part of our family. And then, Trigger is that next dog in line for me that I really love her a lot. And she does get away with a lot more than the other dogs. And she's up on the bed and I'm like, what are we doing? Which is it's not bad to be up on the bed, but it's, normally it would be very transactional for me, but there's something about her that it's just so different. And so I think it is, it is different. And I think sometimes people want that experience of selecting their own dog because it is a different emotion when you're picking them out.
Completely. Oh, completely.
Yeah. But what's been, as we talk about that, was Murphy overall an easy puppy? Just in general, if you put him on the scale of dogs, coming into your home, fitting into your home, the ease of things, not that puppies are easy or anything, but just the ease of being into a home, easier than bringing in just another dog.
Yes and no. Murphy, the breed he is kind of a tougher breed, and there are things there were learning curves that we really had to go through. Not major ones. He's a herding dog, so the nipping type stuff that we'd never dealt with that before.
Yep.
And still to this day, he's the only dog that actually will dominantly challenge me. And he did that really young. And it actually scared me a few times. I was like, there's something not right about this puppy.
Yep.
So that was really hard, but everything else was so easy. Like, because I think because it was so just like matter of fact, you're going in your kennel at this time and you're, you know, you're going to sit when I ask you to sit. And like, everything was so like militant that he was by far the easiest dog to potty train. It's funny. He was way easier to introduce to the pack than Prudence was to introduce to Rambo, which I think is really funny. Rambo and Prudence loved each other, but they will fight.
Yeah.
Where Murphy's always just gotten along with them. Like they haven't always liked him, but he's just always been there.
Yeah.
I think he was a way easier dog for Brandon. Like, than the other two were. So yes and no. There really wasn't that instant love there. So I think the things that Murphy did was harder because like Rambo and Prudence, like especially Rambo, like even if he did something bad, it was like, I still love you. It's cute.
Right.
And anything Murphy did, I was like, ugh, this dog.
Yeah.
But actual training and just like living in the house, yes, he was much easier. Yeah. Rambo was a nightmare.
Yeah. Because I had to live in a closet for a couple months.
Right? He was a nightmare, and I don't even want to talk about Prudence's puppy years. Oh.
Right. Yeah. Shannon, do you have questions?
My question is, like, when you're talking to these breeders and having them send you videos or going and seeing the puppies, like, what were you looking for in those puppies that said to you, this is the right dog for Michelle's pack?
The right, like, why I picked out Murphy as what I was looking for in the videos. I first am looking at the environment, and I really have to be clear with breeders of what I want them to send, or I get this made up video kind of thing where, let's show her how they play with the kids, you know, and so I have to be really clear about what I'm asking. And every situation is different. With the breeder that we worked with Michelle, she was really willing to do some things to help Murphy. Really, it helped her whole litter, but helped Murphy transition better into the home. I didn't care for her in the big scheme of things in comparison to other breeders that were out there, but she was willing to kind of step up to the plate and help do some things to help Murphy be successful. So, it's a give and take with breeders and what you work with, and you can always find a good one. You can always find a good dog amongst anything. And so one, I'm looking at the environment that they're in, how the breeder is videoing them, because it'll tell you the emotional side of things. And she was real businessy. These are my dogs, my puppies. She just had a shitload of dogs. And so, how is she trying to create a good vibe was, the next thing that I'm looking at, because all of that impacts how the litter is imprinted and how they're brought up. And so, and then I start looking at there's a couple of really specific videos that I want. And one is, give me the litter of puppies just being out. Give me a video of mom's interaction with them, and then give me a video of the puppies eating, nursing from mom. And then from there, it's questions of how do you feed them? What's their routines? Do they go outside? Describe to me what how you imprint your puppies. So then I have an idea of what my whole picture is from that point on. And then it's tell me which dogs are available. And I can't remember if we were first pick with Murphy or we just...
No, we were somewhere in the middle. Murphy came from a litter of 11.
Yeah.
12, actually, but one of them died. And 6 of them were boys, and there were 3 boys left, and I really wanted a boy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so then it was send me the picture of the 3 boys. And then it's a process of, of those 3, how did they fit in playing with everybody in the whole litter, to how are they interacting with each other now that the litter, now that we've physically shrunk the litter on them, just to see what what pushes them, and how do they take charge of this smaller litter versus how they were in the big litter. And then and when you're working with a client through a behavioral problem is when you really get to know people, because there's so many emotions involved in behavior modification. And so at that point, I knew how Michelle was going to handle things, and I knew how Brandon was going to handle things. And Murphy does a great job at folding into what Brandon's needs are or what his expectations are, but also filling Michelle's emotional side of dog ownership, even though the connection wasn't there at first. Murphy needed Brandon's structure first so that he could be a good giver in the long run. And so Murphy was definitely in the middle of those three boys. He was on the higher side of the entire litter, though. And I knew when I was working with Michelle with Rambo and the behavior stuff that someday she was going to work for me. Like, I just knew that, and it took a long time for Michelle to figure out that that's what she was going to do. But I knew that Michelle was going to work for me, and so I knew where Michelle was going to grow, because there was a lot of traits in Michelle that I had from just growing up and constantly training and building things and problem solving and not really knowing what you're doing and ruining dogs. But you didn't really ruin them. You just did it right. There was just so many things that Michelle and I had in common. And I don't even think Michelle knew that. It was just that's what I learn about people when I get the opportunity to work on behavior modification with people. And so picking Murphy, he definitely needed to be able to mentally handle whatever he was going to be put into. But I knew that Brandon could give him the support that he needed through the start of that. So again, it's, and I say again, because through the entire podcast there's a dog soul in me that has to pick out like why and what this is. And that's what I go through when I can read a litter, I can see the different personalities, and it's picking the right personality that goes into. And I think it's important as you're picking out dogs for people, that whether you're a breeder out there or whether you're, a friend going to support somebody, you really have to take your emotions out of it and be true to what the dogs are. And I think that the advantage that I have and that I have had through dog selecting with people is working with people all the time. You get to know them, and so it's easier to fit if you aren't just picking out this personality versus picking out this personality because it fits into the home. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, this is for Michelle. Why would you say that Murphy is a perfect dog match for you and your family?
Oh man, now he's the perfect dog no matter what. Nobody can tell me any different. I know it. There's so many things. I mean, I'm so glad Joe did it for us. And honestly, even doing what I do now, it's actually one of my favorite things to pick dogs for people, and not even dogs, but just try and narrow down a dog breed for somebody and their family. It's seriously one of my favorite things to do, and nobody will let me do it. Because they're emotional part of it,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
I still, no matter what, I will still have Joe's opinion on it. If I ever get a dog, even if I stopped working for her, I will always call her and be like, I need you to because I have a very big emotional side to it. I try not to, but I do. I mean, just like everybody does, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Joe, seriously, I remember watching those videos after she had picked out Murphy, and I think at the time I remember actually liking his brother better.
Mm-hmm.
Because his brother was a little bit more dominant. Murphy was by far smarter than the other two that we were watching.
Yep.
He could solve things better, and I was really worried about Brandon for that, because I was like, oh, he's going to outsmart us both. But he really, now that I think about it, he really was an easy puppy. He really was. I did not like him for probably a year. And I can tell you, I really think that really strong bond that I have that I have with him now, was Joe picked the right puppy for us. And I can say that for Brandon too. Murphy, I think Murphy's a better dog for both of us than our other two are. Brandon will probably kill me for saying that because his pretty Prince. But
Yes.
But if we had to like pick one of our dogs as a favorite, and you're not supposed to do that, but I think both of us would pick Murphy.
Sure.
But I really think all of the work that Joe did with me and Murphy is why me and him have such a strong bond now. I think he was the perfect pick for Brandon, and me and him had to make that relationship by training. And we put so much work into that dog that first year.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was a lot of work.
It was a lot.
It was a lot of work. I think that Michelle, is so, if I had to give advice to people out there, this is something that we do for free because we're so passionate about when
Absolutely.
you have the right dog and that connection and that emotional side of living with an animal and it works. You take two different species and we're coexisting together. Is that you can have people select dogs for you, and good breeders won't let you pick your dog. Good breeders will either select for you, and I've had breeders like that. No, you don't get any say, even though I'm picking it for somebody else. But they actually will take my guidance and my direction, right. And so a good breeder will be happy to work with a dog trainer to select. And there we came across some breeders that weren't willing to talk. They were like, no, I won't do anything but with Michelle. And so, you can have somebody do that and we can pick out a dog if you live in a different country for you. I mean, it's something that we love to do. Absolutely. And that we can do it. And having that, I would still, picking out Trigger was, it was pretty rewarding, but right, there's an emotional side to her that I probably shouldn't have picked. I mean, she's a perfect fit for us, but there was some emotion stuff to it. And there were 3 puppies and there were 3 of us. And I don't even know why that even happened the way that it did. It just happened, but there's definitely a different emotion to it versus somebody saying, "Hey, here's your dog." And you're like, okay, game on. This is business stuff where, she really is the first, like, I'm training her. I'm going to compete with her. So there's some different emotion to it, definitely, than if somebody would have just said, okay, here's this dog's yours. As we go along, I think that everybody will hear some similar stories or similar comparisons, that it works and you get to have that emotional connection with a dog that is different than if you just go get a dog.
Oh, I mean, it'd be really interesting just to like ask my friends like how they see my relationship with my dogs, because I guarantee you all of them would be like, "Oh, you're obsessed with Murphy." It's so funny to think of that now, like, because it wasn't at first. It was not love at first sight. Right. Brandon handed me that dog off the plane, and I went, "This is the most disgusting creature I've ever seen in my life."
Yep.
I was not like, I was like, "Take it back now." But I guarantee all of them. In fact, I know they would, because last weekend we were in Vegas, and I kept saying how much I missed that one dog.
Right.
I guarantee everybody would be like, "Oh, Michelle and that dog."
Right.
So
it's pretty powerful.
Where I still have this like love for Rambo that is so different. Like I look at that dog every day and I'm like, you are the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
It's so funny. Like, and Rambo cannot do anything wrong. Yeah. He can't. Like, we went through a lot of behavioral stuff with him, and I know why that happened now.
Right.
But he still is not a perfect dog because I let him get away with everything.
Sure.
And the other 2 do not get away with everything.
Right.
Like, it's such a different emotion.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's great.
Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com. And as always, we urge you to get out and train.